Greetings, guitar fans. Scott here from LearnLoveGuitar.com, the online authority for learning and loving to play guitar. The great thing about standard music notation is that it communicates everything a musician needs to know to play a song exactly as the composer intended. But any guitarist will tell you that standard music notation isn't exactly the easiest thing to interpret for guitar players. Let's take a look and listen to the superb guitar opening melody of the Led Zeppelin classic Over the Hills and Far Away. Unless you're an incredibly experienced musician and guitar player, what you're looking at would take you a very long time to figure out how to play. Because guitar players are a creative bunch, they figured out an entirely different way to communicate which notes to play on a guitar. It's called guitar tabulature notation, or just tab for short. This video is going to explain how guitar tab works and the differences between these two musical notation formats. Learning guitar tab is critical in making your guitar journey a little easier and a lot more fun. Much of the difficulty with standard music notation has to do with a guitar not being quite as intuitive to play compared to other instruments such as a piano. A prime example is to compare the layout of keys on a piano to the frets on a guitar. From basic music theory, you may already know that there are 12 notes in a musical octave, and those notes repeat themselves as you move up or down the chromatic scale. The 12 notes on a piano are relatively easy to see without any difficult memorization or visualization. For example, the note that is to the left of the group of two black keys is a C note. Always. No matter where you are on a piano, this note is always a C. And all you have to do to play that note is push on it with one finger. On a guitar, even something as simple as a C note takes a little more work. First of all, to play any C note on a guitar, you have to use both of your hands. One to pluck the right string, and the other to press on the same string at the right position on the fretboard. And all but 2 of the 6 strings have different notes for each fret. In other words, pressing your finger on the same fret of each different string will produce different notes. Now don't be frightened, but here's what the guitar fretboard looks like through the first 12 frets. The notes grouped together in the tall orange box on the left indicate the open strings, which is sometimes referred to as fret 0. The fret numbers along the bottom that are circled in gray indicate where the dots or other markings are inlaid into the fretboard to help you keep track of which fret you're on. While you don't have to memorize the entire fretboard layout, there are a few critically important items to understand about the guitar fretboard. If you start on any particular string and follow the pattern of notes as you move left or right, you will see the exact same pattern of notes that are shown on the piano keys. Once you get to the 12th fret, the pattern begins to repeat itself because you've reached the next octave. So the 12th fret is the same as the open string, the 13th fret is the same as the 1st fret, and so on and so on. The 5th fret is another natural point of overlap, but in a different way. With the exception of the B string, the 5th fret of a given string is equal in pitch to the next higher open string. For example, the 5th fret of the low E string is an A note, which is the exact same pitch as the second open A string. If you're still a bit confused, pause the video for a couple seconds to better understand what I'm talking about. This phenomenon can be very useful when minimizing finger movement when playing more quickly, as your fretting hand doesn't have to slide too far up or down the fretboard to rapidly play notes of a similar pitch. Also, as you may have already figured out, this type of overlap is repeated between the 5th and 10th frets. If you're now feeling a bit intimidated, don't fret. Haha, my favorite guitar pun. Because help is on the way, and help for guitar players comes in the form of the second type of musical notation I mentioned earlier, called guitar tabulature notation, or guitar tab for short. Instead of worrying about memorizing the musical staff to understand which note to play, and then having to remember where that note falls on the guitar fretboard, guitar tab simply tells you which string and fret to play. In other words, tabs tell you where to put your left and right hands to play the notes of the song. It's genius, really, and makes the life of a budding guitar hero much simpler and enables a much more rapid learning curve. Unlike the 5-line staff used in standard music notation, the staff used in guitar tab notation uses a 6-line staff. And instead of each line or space representing notes in the chromatic scale, each line of a tab staff represents a string of the guitar. The bottom line represents the low E string on a guitar, which is the thickest string, and the top line represents the high E string, which is the thinnest string. Let me walk through this image and identify the key points. Number 1, a standard musical staff with a treble clef and quarter notes representing all of the major lines and spaces. For simplicity, additional standard music notation items such as a time signature, bar lines, tempo headings, etc. are not shown. Number 2, the names of the notes of each quarter note assigned to a particular line or space on the musical staff. The notes between the notes, which are the sharps and flats, are omitted for simplicity. Number 3, a tab staff, which again has 6 lines and is positioned directly below the music staff. And once again, the line at the top represents the thinnest first string, and the line at the bottom is the thickest 6th string. Number 4, the numbers listed on the lines represent the fret numbers on a guitar. Remembering that the guitar nut is considered fret 0, each ascending number means moving your fretting finger one position away from the nut toward the body of the guitar. This particular notation is translated into guitar speak as 2nd fret, 4th string. Number 5, this tab staff line represents the low E string. Number 6, tab staff line representing the 5th A string. And correspondingly, number 7, it's a tab staff line representing the 4th D string. Number 8 is a tab staff line representing the 3rd G string. Without cheating, do you know the names of the remaining 2nd and 1st strings? In case you're having a difficult time figuring out how the guitar tab staff aligns to the strings of the guitar, check this out. Follow along starting from the first E note highlighted in the blue box. The beautiful thing about guitar tabs is that once you see them, you can't unsee them. Hopefully, your brain will start to easily translate the guitar frets and strings represented on a piece of tab notation to the strings and frets on your actual guitar. The graphics we just looked at focus on playing notes on a guitar one at a time. But how does guitar tab communicate how to play a chord or any combination of multiple notes at the same time? Easy. Just by adding more numbers aligned vertically to communicate which additional fret-string combinations are to be played. The image now shown shows 4 basic open chords, C, D, E, and G, on both standard music notation and guitar tab notation. In the standard music notation version, you have to know which notes are being represented on the musical staff based on what lines or spaces the notes occupy, and then you have to know where these notes fall on your guitar's fretboard. In the guitar tab version, you can quickly visualize exactly which frets and strings are being called out. And always remember, guitar tabs don't tell you which notes to play, they tell you which frets and strings to play. Now there is one last piece of the puzzle to get chords to actually ring out from your beautiful guitar, and that is knowing which fingers to put on which frets and strings. Because guitar players don't like playing the game Twister with their fingers, another extremely helpful tool has been created to assist guitar players in knowing which fingers should go where in order to play a chord. They're called chord charts, and they make your guitar life a whole lot easier. On the screen are 4 extremely common chords that all guitar players should know very well. Let's break down each component. Number 1, the letter name of the chord. In this example, a C chord is shown. Number 2, the extra thick horizontal line represents the guitar nut, or the 0 fret. Number 3, each vertical line represents a string of the guitar. The vertical line on the far left represents the low 6th string, which is an E, and the line on the far right represents the high 1st string, which is also an E. Imagine you're holding your guitar by the neck and letting gravity pull the body straight down toward the floor. That is the orientation of a guitar tablature chord chart. Number 4, each horizontal line represents a fret of the guitar. Starting with the first horizontal line below the nut, the frets are numbered 1st, 2nd, 3rd, etc. As shown, most open chord diagrams display the first 4 frets. If a chord diagram shows frets further up the neck, say frets 5 through 8, then the diagram will include the starting fret number, in this case 5, at the uppermost horizontal line, and the thicker nut line will be of a normal fret line thickness to remind you that you are not playing near the nut. Number 5. The numbers listed at the bottom of the chord chart indicate which fingers to use to fret the strings identified. 1 is your index finger, 2 is your middle finger, 3 is your ring finger, and 4 is your pinky. The thumb on your fretting hand is rarely used to fret strings. Instead, it is generally used to grip the neck and create leverage to allow your other fingers to push down on the strings against the fretboard. Number 6. The dots that appear on various vertical string lines between 2 horizontal fret lines tell you where to place your fingers. And number 7, the X and O symbols above the vertical string lines tell you which strings are to be played open, which are represented by an O, which means unfretted, and which strings are not to be played at all, represented by an X. Like the guitar tab staff we reviewed earlier, using chord charts does not require you to know the notes on the musical staff, or where those notes land on your fretboard. The chord charts simply tell you where to put your fingers, and which fingers to use to accomplish the pattern. An important skill when learning to play guitar is the ability to quickly change the shape of your fingers to switch between chords quickly. At first, this will seem like a virtually impossible task, and you will require a lot of time to place each finger one by one. But trust me, the more you develop muscle memory, the quicker you'll be able to transition from one chord to another without skipping a beat. The table shown quickly summarizes the pros and cons of both methods of guitar notation. Starting with standard music notation, the pros are that it communicates everything needed to play the music perfectly. It describes the pitch, which is what to play, the duration and rhythm, which is when to play, and expression and articulation, which tells you how to play. The major con of standard music notation is that translating the notes on a musical staff to individual frets and strings on a guitar is very difficult for the vast majority of guitar players. For guitar tablature notation, the biggest pro is that it's very quick and easy to understand where to put your fingers on the fretboard and which strings to play. And the con of tab notation is that it does not definitively tell you when to play, again, duration and rhythm, or how to play, expression and articulation. It simply tells you where to put your hands. All of my favorite guitar songbooks and individual pieces of guitar sheet music include both standard music notation and guitar tab notation right beneath it, just as shown. To me, this is the most useful method of learning how to play a song for a number of reasons. First, the guitar tab version quickly gets your fingers placed where they belong and the correct strings being played. This enables you to play the correct pitch of notes. Next, the standard music notation can then be used to give you direction on duration, rhythm, expression, and articulation, which are much more easily and quickly identified. For example, distinguishing between a quarter note and a half note gives you direct instruction to play the note for twice as long. And third, don't forget that the vast majority of beginner, intermediate, and advanced guitar players start learning songs they already know very well. So you're probably going to have a really good sense for rhythm and expression just by trusting your ears. If you've made it to the end of this video, congratulations! If you can get your head wrapped around guitar tab and chord charts, you'll be amazed at how many songs you'll be able to start playing within a fairly short period of time. And don't forget to check out my other videos and subscribe to my Learn Love Guitar YouTube channel. Also, there is tons of additional content on my website at www.learnloveguitar.com. Thanks for listening and good luck.